Terima kasih Perdana Menteri Lawrence Wong dan perwakilan. As you notice, the strength of delegation from Deputy Prime Minister to Premier, Chief Ministers and Ministers reflect our not only our friendship, our enhanced bilateral relations and commitment. And this will continue because other than our meetings, the bilateral meetings between ministers have continued, and they've helped us immensely in terms of coming to a final resolution to some of these outstanding issues. But may I also thank you, Prime Minister Lawrence, for the hospitality. It may be a short working visit, but it's very substantive. You didn't allow me even to have a few minutes break. But I do enjoy this very much. Because the meeting has been very cordial. We have shown such a friendship after a series of meetings. You mentioned these official working visits, but beyond that, almost at every opportunity in any multilateral engagements, make it a point to update issues, to show concern on the welfare of our people, and the progress made. Some of these decisions, early decisions. Now, you have raised the issue of FIR, and we acknowledge the need to accept the fact that we need such a flow to Changi and Seletar, and as much that we need a flow to the east. Particularly Sabah and Sarawak. As I've alerted you, Prime Minister, we have more flights into that region as compared to the earlier strength when we initially discussed this in the last many decades. But so the parameters are laid down. We're quite clear on that. So we need to just ensure that whatever arrangement should not frustrate the free movements. And if we accept that principle, I think we can move ahead with more certainty. Similarly, on the issue of energy, as you know, you have been very supportive of the ASEAN Power Grid with Petro-Vietnam, Petronas, and Singapore. And now we are also embarking in an aggressive manner. There is supply of gas, which is in abundance from Sarawak for Peninsular Malaya and Singapore. I've given 2 steps today by Prime Minister Lawrence Wong, and I told him I'm sure Singapore can do a bit more after that. Now, on the economic partnership, on a more serious note, I'm of course very pleased. And I've said this, foreign ministers aware that most of my encounters, my counterpart in other countries, in international forums, I've always make it a point to mention the spectacular example and success, not only a matter of economic arrangement, but it could only happen in terms of the Johor Singapore Special Economic Zone, because of the trust and the friendship. And I don't think this should be ignored or underestimated. This is, I repeat, unprecedented. And we have seen the initial results, which is startling, which of course benefits Singapore, but more so in Malaysia. And I've said, due to this economic zone, for the first time in our history, Singapore has registered a phenomenal growth in terms of investments, surpassing my state, Penang. And I have no complaints about it.
Johor.
Johor, I'm sorry.
Johor.
Johor. Phenomenal increase in Johor that surpassed Penang, because I'm too upset about Penang. Now, connectivity I've referred to in terms of energy, but also investments, and we are open to encourage more investments from Singapore, and Malaysia is a trading nation, as you know, and with all these uncertainties, it is critical that we enhance this sort of trade between countries and within ASEAN. And that is why this showcase of this economic zone can be a good example how countries can work together for the benefit of both the economies and the people. The maritime boundary, I concede, is more complex. But if we have a clear commitment to try and resolve, I'm sure we should progress. And beyond just recognizing it's a problem, a complex problem, and my position is clear. I've told Prime Minister Lawrence, to my colleagues in the cabinet and also the officials, we must work towards an amicable resolution, even if it is not in full, at least progress in part. There are, of course, other issues that we have discussed extensively, the regional issues, trade issues, but I think generally we are on the same page. And I am, of course, extremely delighted to be here and be able to discuss very candidly and frankly with Prime Minister Lawrence and joined by the cabinet members. And we should see, other than the formal meetings, more exchanges, more interaction, because for the two countries, we have, of course, a unique sort of relationship. We can choose to just ask questions about some problem in the past, or we can choose to ensure that this sort of unique relationship would favorably and ultimately strengthen not only diplomatic relations, but more so economic, trade, cultural, and educational, as you have shown such a goodwill in terms of sending your volunteer teachers to Malaysia. So, terima kasih sekali lagi.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Ministers.
There are differences, of course, but there's no hostility. And we don't take action, neither Singapore nor Malaysia, to frustrate these movements. What needs to be agreed upon is to facilitate that process, and at least to have some clarity so this will not create issues in the future. So I think you should at least compliment the present efforts in that direction. I'm not suggesting necessarily that it was never done. This has been the position in the past, but at least for now, for the first time, we have got the parameters clear. What is required by Singapore was required by Malaysia, and let us find out the solution where both would be able to resolve or benefit from this, to function effectively both in the air services and also the maritime. I concur fully. On the Malaysian side, RTS is a major development. The flow of traffic would be horrendous, huge. So the need to, of course, to improve the infrastructure within Johor Bahru and its hinterland too, which we are now working at. And the rest, of course, we understand the requirement for woodlands and the ICQ. We're just working the last phase of the arrangements so that Singapore can proceed fast, because it would benefit Singapore and, of course, Malaysia too. But we are open to new suggestions, but we are working seriously on that, because the issue of dispersal is a major issue even in Johor or Singapore, or generally in Johor and the mainland, and we'll have to probably accelerate that process. Thank you. The first issue on the effectiveness of our communications and the level of trust, water is no longer a contentious issue as far as Malaysia is concerned, and in Johor particularly. Yes, the treated water from Johor, from Singapore, which originates from Johor, but the requirements in Johor is also huge. So any discussion in terms of the price mechanism that we initiated in the past would be more complex, because it would also affect a negative impact upon the consumers in Johor. So that matter is not being deliberated at length. What was important is the Singapore proposal to initiate some discussions on the possible investments into some infrastructure, either in terms of the water capacity and volume, and also in terms of those affected by the pollution, to make sure the level of capacity and also the quality water. So I think that's an issue that we, the federal government and Johor, should look at it clearly. And I have also expressed my readiness to positively look at it, because it is interesting to note the fact that the capacity and volume water in Singapore, in Johor, will of course have an impact on Singapore. So it is understandable that Singapore should place some concern or interest into investing for the benefit of Johorians and the Singaporeans. And the rest on terms of the transportation issues, I think is not contentious issues at all. It's something that the ministries can work out to facilitate the flow, the increased flow of traffic between Singapore and Johor. The drug menace is a problem even in Malaysia. We have traditionally taken a very strong stance, although we've amended the issue of a mandatory death sentence. But if the case is taken up through due process in Singapore, legal process, I mean, of course, the right of families to appeal, I'm no question about it, for compassion or whatever. But then for a government, Malaysian government, we do recognize the importance of taking very tough stance against drug menace, because it has created unbearable hardship and difficulties for many of our people. So that's why even if we need to raise based on compassion on some related issues, we must recognize the fact that the due process has been respected here. You have followed the due legal process and the right for defense, and once it is decided by the courts, we as a country respect that. Now, I'm not suggesting therefore that families cannot appeal, but it cannot be turned into a major or any political issue or differences. If at all, I have not raised. If at all I raise, it's purely a matter of representing the concerns of the families. But no way should I give any indication that we are tolerating or condoning drug trade or related issues, because we all too take a very strong stance at it. Many countries have appealed to us, even there are even now outstanding issues in Malaysia where foreign governments have appealed against the preferred charge and possible conviction of their personnel. But that is why I truly understand and appreciate the tough stance on the part of the Singapore government.